Speakers today is me, Dr. Ruchi Saxena. I'm the Director of Caerobotics and Director of India Flying Labs. And we have Darshan Divakaran from North Carolina, US, who is the President of Airavat Solutions. Today he'll be presenting on drones in emergency response and rescue. So without much delay, I would request Darshan to please take over the stage and you can start the session.
Sure. Firstly, good morning from here and wherever you all are, good evening. I want to make sure everyone can hear me clearly. Is this good or should I connect a mic, headphones and mic?
You are good, Darshan. Thank you.
So I just have to go ahead and click present now, right? Let me see. And
you can, right?
Okay, your entire screen. Okay, let's see. Let me know when you see. Do you all have my screen right now?
Yes, we can see your screen.
And do you see the presentation?
Yes.
So I've gone into full scale mode. So again, a very good morning right now. It's a very hazy day today here, possibly raining. I know it's raining some places in India right now, and I'm not sure about other places in the world, but I am, we all are stuck at home, working from home and getting our knowledge, our work, our time as family, all these things are happening. And there's no better time to learn than now because you have a little more time to spend. And really, there's no weekends and weekdays nowadays for most of us. So any opportunity to learn is a good thing. And my role here in North Carolina. So a quick update about me, and just so that you can understand how this topic fits in. So I come with manned experience. I'm a manned aviator. I come with unmanned aviation experience and geospatial analysis. So understanding data is important, but at the same time, how do you interpret the data? The management side, everything is an important part. And those who have done disaster response or basically flown drones will understand the amount of data that comes in. And over the period of months, you can pile up on a lot of unnecessary data that may not be used in the future. So with that, it's more than just flying a drone. It's planning the mission. It's flying the operation safely, bringing in the data in quick time. Because traditionally, when a disaster response takes place anywhere in the world, and I will speak on how US works, so that will be a better understanding right now. Traditionally, this is if there were no drones and we had handheld cameras, cell phones, and whatever technology other than drones we had. After the disaster, we would deploy teams that are state teams. It could be law enforcement to certain location to take pictures, to give us update. Now, sometimes there's no cell coverage. Sometimes by the time the data comes to the person requested, can take days to couple of months. So not a lot of things, used to change because of traditional operation, but drones became a game changer. And I will start the presentation a little bit with some of the things that will help you all as you get into your career options, or if you are doing all these operations, a little bit of information. So topic for today, drones and emergency response and rescue. So, we have been following the news, a lot of news, good and bad about drones. Some are news that are news like saving lives. How in Africa, Zipline is doing blood delivery. How in North Carolina we did disaster response that had became a global phenomenon. A lot of these things are on the news, and we see this news and either we have two opinions. Basically, we are pro-drone or we are against drones. Now, those who love this technology will always love the good news about it, but those who don't, will always see the bad side of it. So, positive impact is what we try to create with these news, and that's why when you use this technology, or if you are going to use this technology, be sure to use it responsibly. Flying a drone is one thing as a hobby, but you flying drones for an agency, for your organization, for your company, it's same as flying an aircraft for an airline or for a flight school or anything. Moment just because the person is removed from the there's no person on board the aircraft doesn't mean that you can fly responsibly. So just imagine you were sitting in that aircraft and you were flying it. What would you do? If the weather is bad, would you fly? If you don't know how to fly, would you take off? These are questions that come up mind, and that's where creating a positive impact is important. Disasters, emergency response, this is the best time. Sadly, it's the worst time for something like this to happen, but it's the best time to test a technology and see its capabilities. So during situations like this, technology has become the hero, if you say. So drones have shown their capabilities during disaster and emergency response. Now, um, since I know that each of you all come with different backgrounds, some may have advanced knowledge, some may have moderate, some may be new in this. So drones and emergency response, we have to understand that, what an emergency could be both a man-made emergency, a natural emergency. So disasters can be of any time. It could be because of a hurricane, could be because of a forest fire, could be because of the cyclone, anything, or it could be even because someone irresponsibly lit something that caught fire and a couple of properties got destructed. So anything can happen. So these are all part of emergency response. So how does drones show their capability, or what is the best things drones can do during disaster? So reconnaissance and mapping. Basically, reconnaissance is a military term. They before they deploy their main team, or before they are team is on at the location, they do a scan around the area. They make sure that everything is good. They check for concerns and everything. So similarly, mapping missions, it's to know that where the road is, or what is the distance from the road to the house. All these things are part of the mapping mission. And infrastructure assessment, big thing. You have your bridges, you have your roads, airports, all these are part of infrastructure. After a disaster, after a hurricane, or after any situation, you have these are affected. Supply and delivery. You could use drones to deliver life-saving, stuff, basically like even bottle of water, medication, to even a simplest thing that is a mic, or a phone in case someone is stuck and you are not able to pull them out. You want them to be in touch with them, then you can get a phone out there. Wildfire detection, extinguishing. Basically, if this is a big thing in fire side, is to not just extinguish the fire using water and other chemicals, but also to make sure to identify using thermal sensor the pockets where there are still possibility of heat being generated, or the area being still catching fire. A lot of times to the naked eye, it would be the fire must be extinguished, but when you use a thermal sensor, you can see the heat pockets around. Law and order, to maintain peace, to monitor the crowd. Right now, with the situation happening in US, there's a lot of protests going on. A lot of drones are being deployed to help maintain the crowd. And also with the COVID-19, it helps keep that social distancing. So great use there. If you have a chemical leak, a nuclear plant explosion or something, you don't want to send people out there. You want to send technology out there that can be, that if it doesn't return back, has no problem. So, there are situations wherein they deploy a drone to a nuclear plant to if there's a leak or something, and that type of drones don't get utilized again. Basically, that's one-time use. but it's better to send a technology out there, robots and stuff, rather than sending a person to check it out. Search and rescue, a big use case. Search and rescue could be not, not just during disasters, people getting lost or people stuck in debris and everything, but also uh, children walking away from house, getting lost in the crowd, in large property areas, forests and stuff, to even senior citizens having Alzheimer's and all, getting lost, to even comes to even point of prisoners escaping, and these are all part of search and rescue operations. And then you have insurance claim. That's a big thing. A lot of insurance companies have started using drones to assess the claims that come through. And so after disaster, they are regularly using drones nowadays. So these are just uses in emergency response. Um, how it's going to benefit in search and rescue, I mentioned that it's useful, but the practical solution here, it's the angles that the camera has gives us a unique viewing point. The sensors can be attached to it. It's quick deployment, environment friendly, cost efficient, and communication. Like you can do live streaming, and you can basically communicate with the pilot and the location, everything. So a lot of benefits with drones in the search and rescue side. Now, these are some international. So first of all, if you want to be a drone pilot, each country has got their own regulations and rules to become a pilot. So first follow those rules and regulations, get your license or however the process is. But also remember that your work doesn't end there. If you are doing disaster response, if you're doing law enforcement, you might be doing anything that is commercial or for government related, you need to have some qualifications, certifications and stuff. So there are international organizations like ASTM, ANSI, AUVSI that have created standards and best practices that can be used by anyone around the world. So basically, there are teams working on this, and these are experts that are writing these standards. I'm part of all these organizations, and I've been working on writing these standards for public safety, private sector, everything. And it's very beneficial because you have information that you don't have to start from scratch to research and stuff. You have it right there. So these are useful if you are having a drone team, flight team, and especially if you're looking at operations like beyond visual line of sight, operations over people, night operations. There are information out there on how to build your team, what sort of equipment is needed, what sort of training is needed. Another great, certification or program that is there was released by the National Institute of Standards and Technology Training. If you search NIST, you'll see there they have set up a training plan on how the drone can be used and the skills of the pilot. So if you see the image here, you'll see that there are buckets. The buckets contain certain clues and stuff. The drone is supposed to fly close to it, read out or look at it and say what contains in that bucket. They want basically testing the skill of the pilot in close environment. And there is like additional tests being created for navigating in hallways with buildings, search and mapping wide areas. So here is an opportunity that to sharpen your skills, to test your drone's capability. There is a whole a training that is there. They give you the dimensions, how to build these things, and you can create a test bed. And one of the popular ones in US is the ASTM parachute standards for beyond visual line of sight operations. The FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, here it's the regulatory body for aviation overall, both manned and unmanned in US. As per their requirement is if you're applying for beyond visual line of sight or operations over people. When I say operations over people is basically, for those who are new to this, is when a drone flies over people, these people could either be a part of the mission or could not be a part of the mission. They could be just general people walking. If you're part of the mission, great, you know what is happening. But if you're unknown and you're just walking and you see a drone over you, that is scary for some people who are new to this. So they want to ensure it is safe. And for that, they need there's an ASTM parachute standard. There is a whole step-by-step process on how to get a parachute company. Just because now you have a parachute doesn't mean you're allowed to put it on a drone and get these waivers to fly. But you have to, the drone has, basically the parachute company has to do 45 deployments with that specific drone in a third party environment and show the certification for that company's product to be certified for that specific drone. So if you are not aware about it, it's good to look at that standards also. Now, coming to the use case or a case study basically on drones and Hurricane Florence. The Hurricane Florence was in 2018, and this was had a major impact in North Carolina. My team, I led the flight operations and safety for this operation, and basically led a safe operation and an extended 1 week operation wherein the way we did this whole operation and how safe it was and the way it was responded back to the legislature and stuff, we got a humanitarian award from AUSI. Now, I'm not sure if y'all can see my video. If not, here's the link. I will try to play it. If let me know if you can see it. Maybe the audio is working or not. I'm not very sure. Are you all able to hear the sound?
No, the video is being played, but the audio isn't there. Okay.
So I'll just play the video. Maybe y'all can, so the video I have it saved on my laptop, but there's a YouTube link to it. I'm not sure if y'all can click it and stuff, but when you get a chance, do look into it. I'll just show you quickly. It's like a 2 minutes video.
So a few of the speakers want the link. Can you just copy the link and paste it in the chat?
Let me see. I think I should be able to, and y'all can watch it later on also. Yeah, send it out. After my presentation, if you all want, you can watch it, or if you all want to watch it now, if you have good streaming connection, you can watch it. I'm open to anything. Do you want me to continue, or you guys want to watch the video first? Okay, I'll let you all watch it, and it's a 3 minutes. So I'll take a 3 minute breather also.
Okay, so it's around 3 minutes.
Okay. So basically, that video was released by DJI, and those who are in the drone industry know that they're one of the biggest companies in the world. And DJI has released two similar videos. If you search, I think after that there's one more video on how to build drone programs and stuff that we have been doing. I'll share that link with you all after the end of this presentation. So the whole operation was done with the support of the company that manufactures also. So if we needed any assistance and all to unlock the platform and all, it was easy since DJI was supporting this initiative. So it's very important that during disasters and stuff to have direct connection with the manufacturer, because it helps solve technical issues and stuff, which if we are at that point, say our team is deployed to a location and we cannot move forward because of a Geofence lock, then the company can unlock it for us. So we had technical support, and end of the day, we thank DJI for being supportive during these situations. So that video is online. If you have not seen it now, we'll still continue. So Hurricane Florence, as I mentioned, 2018, this was had a major impact in North Carolina. If my numbers are right, there was about $17 million $17 million in loss to the state because of this hurricane. Luckily, the eye of the hurricane did not hit us badly. It passed by, but you can see through the map the impact it had on the coastal side, especially the ones that is Wilmington and stuff. The whole city of Wilmington was disconnected from the state. There was only one. So there's one highway which you see right here in the other left side of the picture. That is a highway, and that is not a river. That's a highway connecting to Wilmington, and basically that highway was shut. This picture. So why I post this picture is it's when we took this, when we sent our team to go and check at the location, this video and picture came to us. We shared it with our social media and news agencies in North Carolina. In less than 24 hours, this picture went viral. It went all around the world, basically, and folks around in other countries started reaching out to us and asking us that is this really a highway, or y'all just took a picture of a river? But this is 7 miles of this was underwater, so there was no way for people to go to Wilmington or come back. And there was University of Wilmington was there. A lot of kids decided to stay back and let the storm pass. So parents got worried because there was no way to reach there. There was no electricity, no food, and other resources there. So a bad time, but a great time to use a technology and show its capability. So as I mentioned earlier, I led the flight operation safety for this. I was also the So we have an EOC. EOC is basically an emergency center that is created where federal agencies and state agencies work together to solve the problem. That is in here. This is the hurricane that had to be, had to be sorted out after the hurricane. How to manage it from ground crew to air crew, everything. So my role with EOC was also deconfliction. That is basically to make sure that drones do not interfere with manned operations like manned search and rescue operation. When I say manned, is helicopter operations, aircraft operations, where the National Guard or FEMA. FEMA is the federal organization here for emergency response. They do manned operations, and these drones shouldn't interfere the airspace and everything. So that is my task, in addition to managing this whole operation for the state. So we had, when it comes to in deploying teams, we can deploy a lot of teams, or we can deploy enough teams that are going to give us results that we need. So we had 15 teams created. Each of these teams had 2 to 3 members. They were mixed of public and private sector. When I say public and private sector, I mean we had police departments, fire departments, Department of Transportation, to private sectors like companies like Precision Hawk, engineering firms and stuff that work together. Here, the main thing was to see how public and private sector can work together during a disaster. So it was the first time this was done, the teams did over 260 flight missions. Each flight mission had 2 to 3 flights. So it's basically different at a specific location, different points of interest. So we had done a lot of flights, over 8,000 images and videos. We did a lot of live streaming. Altogether, we had 515 gigabytes of video and photographs. And not to complicate too much, we didn't allow a lot of different platforms. We kept it specifically to platforms that can be easily replaced. These aircrafts, there was plenty of people having it, so we could replace it easily. If we bought something like a $100,000 or $50,000 drone, yes, it would have helped. It would have been great. But if something happened, we wouldn't have a replacement for it. So technology that can be replaced easy is an important thing during disaster and emergency. Live streaming, I mentioned, it's a great technology, a great technology that is saving lives now, and also for decision making and everything. So basically, when you're flying a drone, you can live stream what the drone sees, the camera the drone sees, to anywhere in any location in the world. So, but the problem is during disasters, emergency, and everything. The cell networks are sometimes the cell coverage is very poor, to even cell towers being destroyed and stuff. So we worked with the state to get dedicated hotspots that were, that gave us, those people who had the hotspots, primary connection. We used Vimeo for live streaming. So a Vimeo link would be created. Vimeo is a company that does video streaming and everything. So we were able to send this link to the pilot. The pilot would stream this location, and we would reach out to the agencies like Division of Aviation, NCDOT, or Emergency Management, our federal and state agencies also. And they would talk to the pilot or to the visual observer and tell them, move straight, take a left, do this, do that. It was a coordinated operation. So wherever live streaming was possible, we did live streaming, and our governor and politicians all could see what is happening in their constitution. We were able to we were able to create the statewide UTM. A UTM is unmanned traffic management. Basically, how do you manage different drones? But this was also to not just manage drones, to make sure that the drones do not interfere with manned operations. So you see in the screen, there were 45 manned flights. This was screenshot before we deployed the drone. But basically, around that time, the state had called for emergency. There was no drone operations below 200 feet permitted, but no flights over 200 feet, not below. If I said it's over 200 feet, were not permitted. So everyone had to stay below 200 feet. But this dashboard was created and tested for the first time in the nation there, where we were able to see where our pilots were. Their locations would be pinged. Each of them, we could send them messages, we could call them instantly, let them know that to stop the operations, or something is coming up and they need to be aware about it. We were able to do surveillance of manned aircrafts using ADS-B, primary, secondary surveillance radar, and it was all together for deconfliction and to ensure that our pilots were safe, but at the same time, we did not interfere with any manned operations. Technology is as good as how it can be integrated with other technologies. You don't want a technology that is only useful for one specific thing. You want that technology to be integrated. So GIS, I mentioned earlier, I'm a GIS analyst. We wanted to see how GIS, that's geospatial information science, could be utilized for these type of operations. And GIS is being used by state and local agencies all over the world for a couple of years now. And GIS helps data management, data security, data interpretation, everything. So here the main thing was like, okay, a lot of pictures are being taken, a lot of videos are being taken, and it is being scanned, and there are teams all over the state. How do we get this data to the agencies that request it in real time or as quick as possible? Now, traditionally, if before 2018, what we would do is the team would go to the location, fly, take the pictures, drive back, and then upload it to the computer, and then stitch the image or whatever is needed and stuff. And then next day or 2 days later, depending on if they could drive back or not, it would have, that would be the problem. Here, what we did was we created a SharePoint drive, basically a link wherein these pilots could. They had dedicated hotspots, so they had complete network. They were able to, moment they finished their mission, the pictures were uploaded to the SharePoint. Our GIS team within the department had written up a code that every 30 minutes, it pull the lat and longitude and put these pictures into a GIS map. So the map you see is the GIS map. So here, if we click those dots, this is a PDF, so you can't click it, but basically this would pop up. The purple ones are videos, the blue ones are pictures. And these long lines you see are manned flights that were done. Now, there was manned operations being done by other organizations. We were able to upload those pictures also. So altogether, we were able to send this link. All we had to do was send a link to the agency saying that your pictures are available to be seen. They would go click the dot. This example picture will come. And if they want to go more in detail, they click it, and there's all the pictures and videos that were uploaded. So now it would save 24 hours for people to get the information, and now the teams could do the necessary. If the road has to be repaired or the bridge has to be repaired or anything, it could be done fast. If someone needs search and rescue, we could send teams quicker. So real-time data is important. This is where planning on how this data is integrated into other technologies like GIS and stuff is very important. So if you know GIS folks, this will be a great thing to work with them on. Now, post-hurricane success. So what was overall the outcome for us? So one, communicate conditions to public to get people off the road. After anything, people are very excited to just get out, take pictures now, especially now everyone wants to post stuff on social media and stuff. So they don't know what dangers ahead of them, if the road is blocked or if there's going to be flooding. A lot of times, especially in the case of hurricanes, after the hurricane passes, 3-4 days later, flooding starts. It's not that specific time. It can start 3-4 days later. People think everything is over and suddenly realize there's flooding. There were cities, third day, fourth day in North Carolina that we knew are going to get flooded. I'll show you the pictures of it. But basically, people wouldn't know unless we communicate this, and we were able to send pictures, videos, give live update, 24-hour update, every day updates, and every other day updates and stuff through these drone data. Monitor evacuation routes and traffic. It helps, using AI softwares and GIs and stuff. You're able to, if there's a road underwater, you can pinpoint the exact location where the road should have existed. And if there has to be, water removed from it so that the road can be opened up. All those things can be planned if we have good data. Gather and push real-time information on infrastructure. So so airports are shut, rail is not operating, but before they let the people continue with their day-to-day operation, you have to make sure that these are safe. The road is safe. The road does not have ditches, or the road doesn't have any sinkholes and stuff. So we were able to monitor this, the infrastructure and stuff, and give updates. Post-storm damage assessment to plan repairs was able to be done, and as I mentioned, the public and private sector were able to operate in a safe environment. The last few slides. So key takeaways. Key roles the drones played in this response: rapid assessment for traffic and infrastructure, public communication and acceptance, streaming video feeds. These three, I would say, are the key highlights for us. And looking forward, what we missed and what we could have done better. So sharing data across all emergency responders. The problem is during these type of situations, a lot of organizations form their own teams. They don't talk to each other. So we were not able to reach out to all the teams that needed data. We are hoping as this as more disasters come and we are able to respond quicker, we are able to connect with all organizations. Regular training is important because you don't want to do your first flight at a disaster. You want to test it out. So it's always good to practice a little bit more, so to make sure that your pilots are practicing, your teams are practicing. Doing mock drills and stuff with your teams is very important. Weatherproof technology is important. Some of these drones cannot fly in certain wind condition, even with light rain and stuff. So you have to make sure you know your drone's capability. Yeah, the pictures. So this is a location, the US 421 in Wilmington. We went on 20th, and this was the picture. 21st. I told you, right? It's after the hurricane, flooding starts. So after the hurricane passed on 20th, there was only this much water. But on 21st, see the amount of flooding and see the whole road got washed away. So this is what can happen after a hurricane, a day, two later. So this is where planning is important. And you see on the third day, we had our road crew there to fix the problem and let people travel and stuff. So this wouldn't have been, people wouldn't have been aware unless they went to this location and some are daredevils. They will still drive by this thinking everything is okay and they get washed away. During the situation, there was a lady who decided to cross a road similar like this, and she got washed away. Luckily, there were passerbys who went and got her. But people think that they don't know the level of how deep it is or how the extent of damage. So these pictures really give you a understanding of it. This was a left side picture of Kingston. Third day, this flooding took place. So you can see that this area is flooded. And on the right is one of the rail line underwater. So no operations were taking place. They wouldn't have known this unless operations would have resumed, and in midway they would have to stop it. This is, there's two things to this picture on the left. One is, this is a dam that got, after the hurricane. This was after 4 days, the dam got busted, and you can see that all the water started moving out of the road to the other side and stuff. But this, the whole road got washed away. So that's how bad this flooding was. But if you look closely, there is a railing right here, which is basically holding strong. Why we put this picture is to tell people that is made in US, so it stays strong. Everything else gets washed away. So it's a joke, but at the same time, you can see the extent to which damage can take place. This on the right is an airport that got flooded. If you look closely on the right bottom, you'll see this two cars. One of the cars was the airport manager who stayed. He stayed in his car all throughout because three aircrafts were left in the airport. The owners did not pick it up. So this is it's a small airport, so it's all small aircrafts. Now, some of the owners of these aircrafts think like, okay, it's my aircraft is safe. I can just leave it there and I'll come back after everything gets better. But unfortunately, the situation is bad. All the aircrafts were taken away. They flew away to the other airports and stuff. 3 people decided not to do it, and that aircrafts were left behind, or I think they were not able to be reached. So the airport manager stayed there until the people came to take the aircrafts, which was like a week away. His house is here. He stays in that airport, and his house got washed away. But he said, if I leave, those 3 aircrafts will also get stolen. So he stayed back. But this is the thing, if he had not sent this out to us through the drone pictures and stuff, we would not known the extent of the damage there. So that's my information. I'm always available. As Ruchi will know, I'm always online trying to answer questions and guide people. Education is something I really love in teaching. I am a visiting scholar here at the university, but I do endless teaching sessions. I have spoken over 50 conferences in the world now in the world in the last 2 years. So anything you all need, reach out. That's my information. Below is my LinkedIn account and my Facebook for my company. You can reach out and connect. With that, that's my presentation, and I'm open to questions if we have time.
Okay, sir, there are a few questions by the people
Sure.
who are watching the stream. So first one is, in crisis event, especially in the natural disasters, hundreds of humanitarians operate on the ground, local and international. How do you deal with the coordination in terms of drones? Do you cooperatively come up with any area that you need to capture, or you have any coordination unit?
So let me try and see if that I can answer this well. So there is during these type of situation, one of the biggest thing is confusion. Here during this operation and future operations that we are done, we had existing data of certain locations that had history of flooding. So whichever part of the country you are and whichever state you stay, there is a lot of information on locations that are low lying and have a potential of flooding and stuff. So we knew all that information and we worked with the team. So there was multiple teams. One of the big thing with this specific operation was that they did not know who we were. They knew basically who we were in general, but they didn't know what we could do and how we could help them. So we had to volunteer. We had to tell them that we will do X number of things, but we will stay away from them. We will stay way clear from them so that we can not interfere with the operation. End of the day, when we gave them the data, after 2-3 days, when the data started coming to them, things changed. They took us more seriously, and then they let us do the operation to the point that the following year they asked us to lead the drone operations for the state. So is that the answer that they're looking for? Is that the right question? Or
probably the question was you need a cooperative team with to work with, or you have a unit based there?
So this is the thing. You don't want to have teams that are driving too much. You don't want people to be traveling too much during these situations because it's an emergency and it's a disaster and everything. So we had teams that were already staying in those locations, and these teams had already we tried to coordinate the team such a way that they either knew each other or we tried to introduce them. So the teams were cooperative, and we were able to basically, that in a state like North Carolina, I would say that we have thousands of pilots. They're scattered all around the state. Why not use the pilots that are available? These pilots are not looking to generate revenue during disaster. They are looking to help out genuinely. So we tried to use that, but we had teams that had to travel less, but most of them were based very close to the location that we had to send them.
Okay, thank you for that. Next question is, in some areas, the flying is not legalized. What if disaster hits those areas?
Okay, so So this is where working with your state and local agency plays a big role because working with the manufacturer of the company also plays a big role. So when we are flying here in North Carolina during this situation, you may think that everywhere we could fly, but no, there were a lot of geofence locks already established by the company, but also there were military bases and airports and stuff. So we had to coordinate with them. The level of coordination, yes, it takes time, but this is where if you are, talking to the lead agency for that specific state, telling them that these are the locations you're going to be flying, you'll give them access to. So we had that the dashboard that we created. We gave them access to the dashboard so that they know where we were actually flying, and these locations where we would want to fly now came to the point that the aircraft wouldn't fly because of the lock. So we reached out to the company. So that's where I said we reached out to DJI and said that we have got the permission from the state or from the body that is regulating this, and they have permitted us. Now comes the part of getting it unlocked. So they helped us get it unlocked and we could fly. So technically a drone can fly anywhere at any to the height that its max is possible. But because of the locks that have been created, you cannot fly it. So that only can be unlocked by the manufacturer or sometimes now like DJI has a system that's a fleet management system where they let the organization unlock the organization lead unlock the platform for their pilots. So that is a system which DJI has created. I think it's called Flight Hub. While as other companies like EB and stuff, you don't have a geofence lock. You have only a range to which you can fly. So basically, those are stuff that happens during this.
Would you please explain what is geofence lock? Because that was also a question.
Okay, so geofence lock is something like a gate. To keep it in simple language, it's like a gate. If you're living in a complex, basically an area, and if you don't want intruders to enter your area, you put a gate around it. Similarly, there are geofence created around certain areas like critical infrastructure. Like you don't want people to fly over the parliament. You don't want the people to fly over a nuclear power plant. So there you can create basically a geofence. Geofence would be circular, square, any size to whatever extent you want. So for example, if I'm staying at my home and I don't want anyone to fly, if I have the power to, so basically if I'm I work for the state, or if I'm a state leader or something, I can say that this location is critical infrastructure. I don't want people to fly it. I'm going to create a geofence lock. So you can work with the manufacturer to create those locks. You can also create locks with fleet management providers and UTM providers, so that unmanned traffic management. So basically it's to keep you out of that area, and mainly a lot of geofence is created over government buildings, military installations, and sensitive areas like some places like churches, temples, and also have geofence locks.
Okay. Another question is, can a drone signal be interrupted by a third party?
Absolutely. It's like a cell phone. Anyone can interpret. Anyone can.
A few of the areas that are geofence, they also have inbuilt jammers with them.
Yeah. So any technology has that danger of being controlled by a third party. But many of these drones that are available have basically a range. So so one thing is that you cannot very few drones are out there. Those are the most sophisticated ones that you can control from another country or from another location. But it's within that range. You have to be within that Wi-Fi range of that drone to really take control of it. So if there is someone taking control, it's within a very close range.
That is basically the 2.4 gigahertz and 5.8 gigahertz that are being used. So yes. Any noise in between can interrupt and cause
Yeah, it's a public frequency, so anyone can use, unless you start using dedicated frequencies. So a lot of companies and a lot of agencies in the world are looking for dedicated frequency So they are working in US also. They're looking for a specific frequency that can be used only for drone operation stuff. So that is an FTC thing, which every country has got their own requirement.
Okay, so another question was, what were the challenges you got during the bad weather there?
Oh, so one thing you have to understand is drones are not all drones. Like there are a few drones out there that can take a good amount of wind and a good amount of rain. So now those drones are not going to be cheap. Those drones are pretty expensive. You have your military drones and all that are a little bit more expensive in the range. Over $100,000, $200,000 drones. Now those are not the ones that we use because those are the ones that if a state buys it, has to show value to it. And if you just bought it and it's left there and not being used once in a year, that does not show any benefits. So these drones that EB and DJIs, which I showed you, have limited capability in weather, in certain intense weather. Now, if it's light rain, that's fine. If it's light winds to a certain amount of gusting, that's fine. So we had to wait for the hurricane to pass. So we could do flights before the hurricane to pre-plan stuff, but we had to wait for the hurricane to pass, the winds to die down before we send our pilots out. So one is to make sure that your pilots are safe. If it's still raining, if there's still hurricane, we don't. Maybe the drone can fly, but our pilots are not. We don't want to risk our pilots. So we had to make sure the pilots are safe, the drone is safe, and when these operations are done, it does not go and crash into someone's house and stuff like that. So we have to make sure the weather had to be cleared. So that was a big thing, is that period, how much you had to wait. Some people might say, okay, hurricane is gone, let's go and fly. But you have to realize that hurricane is gone from a certain location, or the rain is reduced at certain location. It's not overall state. So you may be able to deploy one team at one location, but the other team will have to stay back. So that coordination, it depends on, we need people, we need eyes at that location to tell us, okay, the wind is done, the wind is gone, or the rain is gone, or something like that. So that is a big thing. That coordination is very important. And when you have teams deployed all around, you get people who are excited to go and fly. So it just takes us, it's our best judgment at that point.
Next question is, would you explain what a SOP for such operations is?
Sure. So one of the things when we operate here, first part of the state of procedure is that you need to make sure that your technology is tested, charged. We had to make sure that they had their those who use DJI know that they have to have their own account. Now when we have Geofence, how do we unlock it? Is through that person's email address. So we had to make sure that all the pilots that were flying had their email sent to us so that we could unlock their account. It is not just the platform that gets unlocked, it's that account that gets unlocked. So that was one of the criteria. Batteries had to be charged, batteries had to be extra, wires had to be checked. We had to make sure that the pilots have their documentation. One of the biggest things that can happen is, that can make headlines is that someone is flying a drone that is not qualified and crashes the drone. So we had to make sure that the person is qualified. So we had to pull in the documentation. We had a fleet management software company that we are working with basically. So we were able to integrate all that information into the fleet management. So we knew the drones that they were using, the battery life for it. And then we had to give them, beyond this, we had to show them how to use the hotspot, how to use how to upload the data, how to live stream. We had to teach them, and it's not just teach them. We had to, because they didn't all come to one office and we could sit down with them. This was all done through conference calls. We had to do live streaming to show them the capability, to tell them what was need to be done. Daily, we had to do a check on their system, their health level. That's also important. One of the biggest thing is you can exhaust your pilot completely because you have limited pilots. So we had to check if they are feeling well, they are, they can do their operation stuff. So all these were part of our SOPs that we had to follow every day. We had these checks done.
Thanks for that. Next question is, what are the similar? Can the EB and the DJI multi-rotor be used in similar fashion?
So I think an EB and DJI.
DJI multi-rotor. That means he is asking whether the fixed wing and the multi-rotor can be used in the similar fashion.
So yeah, so how? So I'll first tell you how both those drones helped us in a different way. So the EB is a fixed wing that flies like a manned aircraft, like your a manned aircraft, and your DJI, the DJI ones are more like your helicopters.
VTOLs.
So yeah, so your rotor wing. So now when we were doing certain operation, we were able to go to certain locations and fly in those locations with those multi-rotors. But when it came to that, which I told you, 7 miles of underwater, if we used a multi-rotor, it would have taken us a long time. So this is where an EB came into benefit. We were able to do the first beyond visual line of sight flight during that day, and basically that was where the fixed wing was used. So each aircraft has its own benefits, and they are you have to use them as per the situation. You cannot just fly one type of drone, so that's why you have to mix it with fixed wing and rotor wing.
Okay. So another question is, can everybody create a geofence?
No. So yes and no to it, but it depends. So it's, for example, like I said, EB doesn't have geofence. So if you have an EB, doesn't really help you have a geofence. If a DJI puts in a geofence generally is applicable. The manufacturer will only put a geofence if you are from a government agency. This is how in US it works. Is the government agency? In our case, I was part of the government agency till February, so we had to submit which areas we need geofence. So like prisons were geofence. So it has to be a government agency that creates a geofence. But moving forward with the unmanned traffic management, it may be more government and private entities. So like some entities do not want their nuclear plant or private industry being flown over. So later on, there may be a possibility of private sectors being able to create it also.
Okay. Then another question is, can everybody interrupt the signals? That means probably hijack the signals.
Not everyone. You require specific skills for that and specific softwares, but it's not something that is difficult, I would say. Nowadays, there is hacking for dummies and stuff enough there for us to review and learn the process. But the cheaper the drone, the difficult to hack it, because it doesn't have those systems that you would want to hack. So
and even the Wi-Fi and other networks are also on the same band. So probably if a network tower is nearby with the same band, then it can interrupt the signal.
Exactly. And also, if you look at it, many times, not just that, but even metal. If you let me tell you, like if you're flying near bridges, the bridges contain a large amount of metal. There's a lot of interference in that simple. This is not even interference with someone trying to hack or anything. It is just basically like if you're operating certain drones in indoor, because of the metal content around, it can impact the performance of drones. So we have had a time where a demo was being done in our manned aircraft hangar. Moment it took off, it went and crashed onto the roof because that whole hangar is metal.
Okay. One more question is, did you have a coordinate flight for multicopters? Like you had 15 teams?
So we had 15 teams. We had locations. So each location, we would send them the location, the lat and longitude. They would reach that location and fly that location. So everything was coordinated and every information was given to the pilot prior to what extent we want the flight to be done. Do we need 1 mile? Do we need half a mile of that? Or do we need a specific point of interest?
Okay. Another question is for the commercial use, like in emergency or something, tailor-made platforms such as DJI, SenseFly, Sky Studio will be better, or a customized one?
Yeah, I would say that that's tough to decide because custom-made ones you could have you could add features and stuff that you want specifically. While as when you buy off-the-shelf products, you have to just adjust with what you have. So there is pro and cons to both. With the off-the-shelf drones, there is a lot more features that we are tested, tried, and everything before it has been. Implemented or being used, while as created ones, maybe that's the only technology or only sensor that is there, and if something happens to it, we may not get a replacement for it as soon as we want it. So off the shelf, yes, there are a lot of parts available, so replacing it helps. So it depends on the situation, and largely on what type of location you're flying. If you're flying in a military base or something like that, off-the-shelf drones wouldn't be your best choice because of the whole data privacy and stuff that has been going on, security and stuff. So you want off-the-shelf drone. You don't want to fly off-the-shelf. You would want a drone that has been specifically built and tested by the military and stuff like that.
Okay, so the last question is, what were the pre-planning for the mission that you did before and after the hurricane?
Sure. So one of the things is the roads, the roads, the airports, the bridges. As I mentioned, these are locations that some of these locations have history of flooding and also history of damage done. So if we know that this is where I would say, like, if we know that there's a certain portion of the area that gets flooded regularly, but once it gets flooded, we don't know where the road is because it's underwater, or where the or how many houses were there unless we have the data. So yes, there's Google Maps, yes, and stuff, but many of them are not current data, so we don't know if there was supposed to be a house there or not. So in North Carolina, the coastline has a lot of houses that get washed away because of this hurricanes and stuff. So we did a pre-flight because that's where the major impact is going to be there. So we did a between 16 and 20 miles we flew, and prior to this mission, like this was a month, 2 months before we had flown this mission, nothing knowing about hurricane, just that we know that hurricane season starts July, August. So in May, June, we did a flight of 16, 20 miles. So that data that we got, we compared it with the data after the hurricane, and we could see the extent of damage, what needs to be repaired, or how much of the houses really got washed away. So a lot of these comparisons help. So before and after, those were some of the things. Also, extent of damage to the airport because or the other locations. So the state's tax is being used to repair this or fix this. Now we can use. So for example, if the road is already destroyed before the hurricane, and we are the hurricane had nothing to do with it, and then after hurricane we say that road got damaged because of the hurricane, so we need this money, this specific funding towards it. Now, that's wrong to be done. So this is where the locations that were impacted by hurricane needs to be fixed or sorted out, based on the funding that is being provided for that specific cause or reason. We cannot just tap into the funding and say that this house got destroyed and my house also needs to be fixed. So a lot of those things we have to make sure with the prior and post data, especially a state when it comes to taxpayers' money, the people can ask for proof that where did you do this repairs, where did you do this, where did you do that, and that is where the data comes into place.
Okay, thank you for that. Most of the questions are answered. Now, Dr. Ruchi will take over.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Darshan. You are so generous in sharing your knowledge. I really cannot thank you enough for being so kind and so accommodative. We have overshot our time. We requested you for 15 minutes and we have pulled in you for 1.5 minutes.
That's going to be a problem whenever if you get me, is you'll always have to take more time because I will not stop talking. But thank you for the invitation. I hope a lot of people learned, and I'm looking forward to seeing everyone in this industry.
Thank you so much, Darshan. So before we go today, I have one small thing to share with everybody. Can you all see my screen?
No, not till now. Now it's starting.
All right. So what you see in this is a man. His name is Shankar Halde. I met him in Bangkok in a conference. He gave a presentation on his work in Sundarbans. That's where we got really bonded. A person from India talking about his work in a disaster prone area, me talking about drones and disasters, we kind of commonly connected. He invited me over to Kolkata. So next time when I was in Kolkata, I just landed in his office. He was meeting with his local volunteers from the village. And I said, I'm free. Can I just go to your village? And he said, yeah, why not? So I took a train. I went to his village. This is somewhere where the village looks like. If you see towards the bottom of the picture, you see something called G plot here. G plot is the most vulnerable place in Sundarbans. Now, I do not know what Sundarbans are. In my imagination, Sundarbans were a forest where you find manhunter tigers. But I was surprised when I went here. It's a good village. I mean, there are a lot of people, a lot of settlements, children, and going to schools and everything. So it's like a regular village. Just that it is very, very close to a delta and it is super prone to cyclones. I went with this team. We took a ride of 35 kilometers in train and 35 kilometers over motorcycle. I saw the villages, I saw the market. I stayed with his family. His mother showed me this tree which was 150 years old, which got uprooted during the cyclone Titli. And this boy told me that, okay, let me fetch these amlas for you. They offered me something called Khajur Gud, what you see on this side of the picture. It is made using the date syrup, and they showed me how it is made. I traveled with them, I saw the villages, I saw the houses. So the house which you see on the top left corner, it's actually made by the plants that you see there are the mangroves. So villagers cross the river, go to the mangroves, and they cut these trees and they bring them back to make their groups. I saw the work which was done by Mukti Foundation, Shankar Halder's organization, the library that they maintain, the women which are working to give free food. I saw how they travel daily in boats, take the motorcycles and cycles. We crossed the river, we went to a village. So I saw how cyclone shelters in Sundarbans look like. It was the second cyclone shelter which I saw. The first one was in Odisha. And we went to the school, which you see in the picture, in the lower right corner. In the school was a medical distribution program going on. I was felicited and you see all these beautiful faces. I told them about drones in healthcare and drones in disasters. They were really excited and we want our children to learn about drones. Now, last 2 weeks, we have been working here because now the pictures which were coming to me were very strange. The same place that I had visited for just a regular visit now has been converted into a completely flooded school. This is how it looks like now. Now when you see places that you have already visited, you have already seen people's lives, and then now you see them, natural feeling is of empathy. And you really cannot sit behind doing nothing about it. The houses that you saw that are completely collapsed, the lives that are disturbed. See the power transmitter out there? Now when you use your drones, it makes more sense because now you can completely relate what the drone is talking about. You have seen these villages, you have seen the people, you have seen the roads and the farms, and you've seen their lives. So now technology makes sense to you because whenever they send you the pictures back from there and when they send you a map like this, know what Sundarbans is, what people are. Yesterday when we did the assignment, assignment was about empathy. I asked all of you to share a problem that you would like to solve and talk about who your problem will be impacting a lot. So this is what it is. Technology, using a technology is good, but whom are you using it for? It makes it more contextual. Darshan presentation also we saw, because Darshan was a local and he would connect with almost 1000 local drone pilots. It was so much easier to work, because we cannot imagine the same team going across the country and doing something. That's the context we really wanted you to think about. And also talking about the assignment for today, you will be getting an assignment now. In that assignment, you have to start imagining yourself as a leader who is being called to respond to an earthquake in a neighboring country, not your own country, in a neighboring country. In this situation, you have to make a project plan. You have just 2 days to respond. That will be the assignment for tonight. And I hope you like this session as well. We have 28 more days to go. Keep your patience intact. Thank you so much for being a great class. And I really thank once again Darshan on behalf of the whole of the class for being such a good teacher. If anybody has anything else to add before we wrap up, otherwise it's almost 8:15 now in India and 8:30 in Nepal, and let's close for the day. Thank you so much, everybody.